I've got to give a shout out to Tony, who left this post in my boxing group on Facebook, Hatman Boxing. As you can see, the post really sums up what's going on with Frank Warren right now with regards to the Fury Wilder fight. Post says, this whole whoever wins out of Fury and Wilder will be the best heavyweight thing Warren, Fury and Wilder are trying to push reminds me of playing football back in school when your team's winning 4-0 and then one of the kids on the losing team shouts, next goal wins. Exactly that. It is exactly like that. Old Frank Warren coming with the schoolboy tactics. The playground tactics, what Frank Warren tried to come with. Exactly that. It's ridiculous. How can you say this fight when there's only one belt on the line? When you got one guy coming back from depression, losing 100 pounds in weight, 2.5 years off, drinking drug problems, on the brink of suicide, only 2 rehabilitation fights against total no-hopers. How could you say a fight between that guy and Deontay Wilder, a guy who doesn't have a resume anywhere near as stacked as Anthony Joshua's resume, and you're trying to tell me those two guys are going to decide who's the best heavyweight in the world right now? Foolishness. Whether you like Anthony Joshua or don't like him, you have to include him in the equation when it comes to who's the top heavyweight. Whoever wins out of Fury and Wilder, they have to go see Joshua to decide who's the best. You can't say it's Joshua right now for sure. No, you can't. You can't say Joshua's definitely the best. But you can't say Fury or Wilder are definitely the best either. Until the guys get in the ring and square off, then we won't know who's the best. That's the truth. That's the reality. So when Mr. Frank Warren is coming out with all this rubbish that he's coming out with, that's exactly what he's doing. Like the little kids in the school playground who are on the losing team that want to shout out, next goal wins. Because they know they ain't going to win. They know they're losing. They're 4-0 down. Frank Warren right now is 4-0. He's more than 4-0 down when it comes to his situation with his main rival, Eddie Hearn. He's more than 4-0 down. Eddie Hearn is killing it right now in the UK. We don't know if Eddie Hearn's going to do so well in the US. At the moment, it's not looking too promising, to be honest with you. But in the UK, come on, man. It's not even close between Matchroom and Queensbury, Frank Warren's promotional outfit. It's not close right now. Come on, man. Frank Warren shows at the moment, they're just not delivering. He does have some big fighters now. Obviously, Fury, Frampton. These are big fighters. But Frampton hasn't been in a proper competitive fight yet. Daenerys was way over the hill. You know, I said long time when that fight was made, that's not a real fight. Daenerys washed up, completely washed up. That was never a fight I was really interested in. That's a washed up guy. Then the guy he just fought on a weekend, I mean, you shrug your shoulders at that one too. And Tyson Fury has obviously fought a couple of stiffs, and that's fine for Fury's comeback. I got no issue with Fury fighting stiffs for his comeback because the rehabilitation process has to take place, given what he's been through. But I'm just talking about the quality of Frank Warren shows. Frank Warren was the man back in the 90s, no question about it. Frank Warren put on incredible shows back in the 90s. I remember them well. Some of the best shows I've ever seen in British boxing were Frank Warren shows back in the 1990s. But we're not in the 1990s no more. The 1990s is 19 years ago. We're in the 2000s. Coming up to the 3rd decade of the 2000s. Times have changed. The boxing landscape has changed. And Frank Warren has not managed to keep up. Now, one thing I'll say about Frank Warren, I've said this many times, is he is an incredibly determined man. You will not find many people more determined than Frank Warren. The man is a fierce, and I mean fierce, competitor. This is a guy who got shot And rather than stay in hospital for as long as he was supposed to, I think it was at least a couple weeks or 10 days that he was supposed to stay in hospital, he checked himself out early after a few days so he could get back to business promoting boxing. That's how determined this man is. Frank Warren is fierce. He is ferocious. But his ferocity and his fierceness may not be enough in this era. You need to understand the market. You also need to have the talent. He's building up a stable of talent now, for sure. But does he understand the market? The modern market? Because it's taken him a while to really get up to speed with the modern market. And he's not totally there yet. So we'll see. But again, Frank Warren put on great shows back in the days. And in fact, Frank Warren was probably a very big factor in why Barry Hearn, Eddie's dad, decided to walk away from boxing. Yeah. Barry Hearn walked away, and I can't help but think that Frank Warren's fierce competitiveness had a lot to do with that. Because Frank Warren was the man back then. And Barry Hearn just was like, you know what? I've got darts, I've got snooker. I'm not sure I want this smoke with Frank Warren no more. Perhaps that was the case. I don't know. But right now, yeah, I'm not impressed with Frank Warren shows. When he has his marquee fighters, the likes of Fury and Frampton, when he has them on his shows, they're in non-competitive fights. And the competitive fights that he does have on his shows are usually domestic level or fighters who nobody really cares about, fighters who are not particularly exciting. That's what Frank Warren tends to have on his shows. I think Frank Warren needs more heavyweights on his shows, to be honest with you. More heavyweights, more cruiserweights, more big guys. Because even if you're putting fights on which are domestic fights, European level fights, with heavyweights, there's a higher chance you're going to see spectacular knockouts and spectacular action. And that's what people want to see. This is why Eddie Hearn's shows, for my money, a lot of the time are way better than Warren's shows. Because he's not necessarily stacking the card with world title fights and all that kind of thing, Eddie Hearn. But he is putting a lot of heavyweight fights on there, as we saw a couple weeks ago. And cruiserweight fights. He's got Lawrence Okoli, obviously, on the undercard of Joshua against Matty Askin. These cruiserweights and heavyweights, people like that. And these are competitive fights. Matty Askin, Okoli, that's competitive. Allen versus Nick Webb, competitive. Chisora versus Takam, competitive. Chisora versus Takam, Tyson Fury said, all right? It's not me. Tyson Fury said Chisora versus Takam is one of the best heavyweight fights he's ever seen in his entire life. Same for me. It's an amazing fight. So, yeah, Warren needs to sort out his shows, man. These little fighters, these little lightweights and welterweights and all these kind of business that he has on his shows, if you're not going to put on fighters in those weight divisions who are at a high level, who are exciting. I mean, even, for example, Eddie Hearn, he's got Lewis Ritson. Okay, Lewis Ritson is exciting. He's somebody from the smaller weights, but he's someone who lets his hands go and he's exciting. He's got a buzz around him. So if you're going to put on smaller guys who, not world level or not world level yet, make sure they're serious concussive punchers. I know he does have Zolani Tete, to be fair. But Tete doesn't really have a following like that in the UK. Because he's from South Africa. So anyway, it is what it is. I hope Frank Warren gets back to his best. I hope Frank Warren can genuinely offer Eddie Hearn some proper competition. I hope so. Because then it will demand better quality product from Eddie Hearn too. And that's a win-win for the fans, isn't it? But right now, Frank Warren is not really providing any proper competition for Eddie Hearn. At least not with his UK shows. The first proper competition he's providing is with this Fury Wilder fight. That's what I can say. The Fury Wilder fight, this is the first time that Frank Warren has done something where Eddie Hearn's having to look over his shoulder a little bit. The Fury Wilder. But as far as his UK shows, Frank Warren's still got a long way to go to catch up with Eddie Hearn at the moment. We'll see whether he can. I hope he can. You know, there are people out there, deranged people, claiming that I work for Eddie Hearn or I'm on the Eddie Hearn payroll. Ridiculous. I'm not on the payroll of any promoter, never have been. But anyone who says anything good about Eddie Hearn or a show that he's put on, instantly they say, oh, well, you must be on the Hearn payroll. Can you imagine how illogical and deranged you have to be to come to that kind of conclusion? It's in the minds of these people, Eddie Hearn is not capable of doing anything good. Everything he does has to be seen as being terrible. It has to. You're not allowed to ever say that Eddie Hearn's put on a good show. This is the mentality of these people. They're deranged. These people are not right in the head. The reality is, when Eddie Hearn does something good, I'll praise him. When Eddie Hearn does something bad, I'll criticize him. You go back and look at my videos a couple years ago when I was saying that I wish Al Heyman would start putting on PBC shows in the UK. Big world title fights on terrestrial TV, because that would be proper competition for Eddie Hearn. That's what I was saying in them videos. Them videos are still up. Go search on my channel, Al Heyman, Eddie Hearn, and you'll see that I was saying, man, Eddie Hearn needs some proper competition. Al Heyman needs to go to the UK, start putting on big shows just like he's done in the US on free-to-air television, and that will put Eddie Hearn under pressure. That will make Eddie Hearn have to step his game up, and Frank Warren have to step his game up. When David Hay announced that he was going to do shows on Dave and what have you, and Channel 5, I was happy for that, because we need more we need more boxing on terrestrial television in the UK. It helps grow the sport. I'm all for anything that helps grow the sport. That's what I'm about. So there's no allegiance to any promoter here. If you think there is an allegiance to a promoter here, you're on the wrong channel. Because when it comes back around to me criticizing Eddie Hearn, a lot of people who are Hearn fanboys who thought that I was also a Hearn fanboy, they're in for a rude awakening. They'll be horrified and shocked. In fact, some people were horrified and shocked when I criticized Eddie Hearn's first DAZN show. I said that's a weak card, and it is a weak card. But be prepared for a rude awakening again in the future when I have to go in on Eddie Hearn. But right now, Eddie Hearn, in the UK at least, he's winning. He's putting on good shows. He has a lot of exciting fighters. And he's doing his thing. In America, he's making moves. The jury's still out for me on whether the DAZN thing's going to work, but he does at least have Danny Jacobs. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below about everything I've talked about in this particular video. All right, it's Hatman, I'm out.